I was setting the table for a special dinner to celebrate Angelina getting promoted at her marketing company. 6 months ago, I had proposed to her with a diamond ring I had saved 3 years to buy. She had just returned from a 2-day business trip, and I could not wait to hold her in my arms. When she walked through the front door, I noticed something different about her, but I could not pinpoint exactly what it was. There was a change in how she carried herself, and the way her eyes seemed to avoid mine. Before I continue this story, please let me know where you are watching from, and do not forget to hit like and subscribe so you do not miss these real-life stories. Trust me, what I am about to tell you will make you question everything you thought you knew about the person you love most. The evening I had planned was supposed to be perfect. I had spent hours preparing Angelina's favorite pasta carbonara, lighting candles throughout our dining room, and opening a bottle of red wine I had been saving for a special occasion. The promotion she had earned was well-deserved after months of working late nights and weekend projects. I wanted to show her how proud I was of her accomplishments. Angelina arrived home 30 minutes later than expected. She apologized, explaining there had been some last-minute issues at the office that required her immediate attention. As we sat down to eat, I noticed she kept hiding her left hand, either placing the napkin over it or holding her wine glass with that hand. It seemed deliberate, almost calculated. When I asked about her business trip, her responses felt rehearsed and vague. She would start to answer one question, then quickly shift the conversation to something else entirely. The Angelina I knew was always eager to share details about her work trips, especially the challenges she faced and the clients she met. Tonight she seemed uncomfortable discussing anything related to her recent travels. Then she mentioned Miami. She told me about plans to visit there with 3 of her college friends in 2 weeks. Jessica, Marina, and Sophie had apparently been planning this trip for months, and Angelina was excited about the opportunity to reconnect with them. She described it as a much-needed break from the stress of work and wedding planning. Something about the way she spoke about this trip felt different, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. After dinner, while Angelina was taking her evening shower, I began clearing the dishes from the table. As I reached for her wine glass, I caught a glimpse of her left hand when she handed me the napkin she had been holding. My heart stopped. The diamond engagement ring was missing from her finger. The ring I had worked overtime shifts to afford, the ring that represented my promise to build a life with her, was nowhere to be seen. My mind raced with possibilities. Maybe she had left it at the office for safekeeping during her business trip. Perhaps it had fallen down the bathroom sink or gotten caught on something, and she had not noticed yet. I tried to rationalize the absence, but a growing sense of unease settled in my stomach. When Angelina emerged from the bathroom, I casually asked about the ring. Without missing a beat, she explained that she had taken it to a jewelry store for repairs because the diamond setting had become slightly loose. She said she did not want to risk losing the stone, so she thought it was better to have it checked by a professional. Her explanation sounded reasonable, and I wanted to believe her, but something about her delivery felt rehearsed. The next morning brought more unusual behavior. Angelina woke up earlier than usual and rushed through her morning routine. She avoided eye contact during breakfast and gave short, clipped responses to my attempts at conversation. When I suggested we spend the upcoming weekend visiting my parents, she said she might have to work on Saturday and could not commit to any plans. Throughout that day, I noticed Angelina was texting more frequently than normal. Every time I approached her while she was on her phone, she would quickly flip it screen down or slide it into her pocket. This was completely out of character for her. We had always been open about our phone conversations and messages, often sharing funny texts or interesting articles with each other. During my lunch break, I decided to visit the jewelry store closest to our home to inquire about ring repairs. I wanted to understand the typical timeline for such work and perhaps get some peace of mind about when Angelina's ring would be ready. The store manager looked confused when I described the ring and asked about recent repair work. She checked their system thoroughly, but found no record of any engagement ring matching my description. Feeling more concerned, I visited 2 additional jewelry stores in our neighborhood. Both gave me the same response. No one had any record of repairing or even seeing an engagement ring like the one I had purchased for Angelina. The knot in my stomach tightened with each negative response. That evening, I decided to come home early from work, having canceled a late afternoon meeting. As I quietly entered our house, I could hear Angelina talking on the phone in our bedroom. Her voice carried an excitement I had not heard in weeks. I caught fragments of her conversation through the partially closed door. "So we have enough money now. Miami is going to be absolutely amazing," she said with genuine enthusiasm. "I cannot wait to see that villa you showed me in the photos." When she noticed I was home, Angelina quickly ended her call and came out to greet me. I asked who she had been talking to, and she said it was her mother asking about the weather forecast for the week. Curious about this explanation, I inquired whether her mother had any travel plans that would require weather information for Miami. Angelina looked confused for a moment before saying her mother was just making conversation about the unusual spring temperatures we had been experiencing. The contradiction was subtle but noticeable. Her mother lived in Oregon and rarely asked about our local weather, and Angelina had just mentioned Miami on the phone, not local temperatures. My suspicion was no longer just a feeling, but a growing certainty that something was very wrong. I spent most of that night staring at the ceiling, replaying every strange interaction from the past few days. By morning, I had made a decision to uncover the truth, whatever it might be. After Angelina left for work, I began a careful search of our bedroom, focusing on areas where she typically kept important documents and receipts. In the bottom drawer of her dresser beneath some old college textbooks, I found a crumpled receipt from Golden Pawn Shop. The date on the receipt was from 3 days earlier, and the amount listed was $3,200. My hands trembled as I held the paper. That was the exact amount I had paid for Angelina's engagement ring 2 years ago. The address of the pawn shop was in a part of town I rarely visited, about 20 minutes east of our neighborhood. I called in sick to work and drove straight there, my mind cycling through dozens of possible explanations for what I might discover. Golden Pawn Shop was a small, cluttered store wedged between a laundromat and a check-cashing business. The owner, an elderly man named Frank, greeted me with the wariness of someone who had dealt with countless difficult situations. I explained that I was looking for information about a ring that might have been pawned recently, and I provided specific details about the cut setting and inscription inside the band. Frank studied my face carefully before disappearing into a back room. He returned with a small velvet box that I recognized immediately. Inside was Angelina's engagement ring, looking exactly as it had the day I first placed it on her finger. The inscription I had engraved, "Forever Yours," was clearly visible inside the band. "Young lady brought this in 3 days ago," Frank confirmed. "Seemed to be in a hurry, said she needed cash quickly for a trip. Nice piece, good quality diamond. She seemed to know exactly what she was doing, not like someone who was desperate or being forced into anything." I asked about the terms of the pawn agreement. Frank explained that Angelina had 30 days to return and reclaim the ring by paying back the loan amount plus interest. If she failed to return within that time frame, the ring would become property of the shop and could be sold to other customers. "She said she would definitely be back within a month," Frank added. Seemed confident about it, like she had a plan for getting the money. The drive home felt surreal. I kept glancing at the pawn shop receipt on my passenger seat, still hoping there might be some innocent explanation I had overlooked. But deep down, I knew what I had discovered represented a fundamental betrayal of our relationship and our upcoming marriage. That evening, I forced myself to act normally when Angelina returned from work. I asked about her day and listened as she described a challenging client meeting and upcoming project deadlines. She continued to hide her left hand throughout our conversation, either keeping it in her lap or using it to gesture in ways that concealed her ring finger. After she went to sleep, I carefully accessed her laptop, hoping to find more information about her Miami plans. I discovered a chain of emails between Angelina and her 3 college friends dating back several weeks. The correspondence revealed elaborate plans for their upcoming trip that went far beyond a simple weekend getaway. They had reserved a luxury villa in South Beach for 4 nights at $2,000 per night. The emails discussed plans for yacht rentals, shopping excursions on Lincoln Road, and VIP access to several exclusive nightclubs. Angelina had committed to contributing $3,000 toward the trip expenses, which explained exactly where the money from pawning her ring was intended to go. One email from Jessica particularly caught my attention. "Remember, girls, we need to keep this trip between us. Men just do not understand the importance of having these moments of freedom before we settle down completely. What they do not know will not hurt them." Another message from Marina referenced similar deception. "I told David I was visiting my sister in Tampa for the weekend. He has no idea about our real plans, and it is better that way. He would just worry unnecessarily." The pattern was clear. All three of Angelina's friends were deceiving their partners about this trip, and they had encouraged her to do the same. What hurt most was realizing this was not a spontaneous decision, but a carefully orchestrated plan that had been in development for weeks. I spent the rest of the night printing out the most relevant emails and organizing all the evidence I had gathered. The pawn shop receipt, the jewelry store confirmations, and the email exchanges painted a complete picture of Angelina's deception. Tomorrow, I would have to confront her with what I had learned. I used my lunch break the following day to return to Golden Pawn Shop and speak with Frank about retrieving the ring. I wanted to have that option available regardless of how my conversation with Angelina might unfold. Frank assured me that as long as I could provide proof of purchase and identification, he would allow me to reclaim the ring by paying the same amount Angelina had received. I also called my sister Sarah, who lived about an hour away, to ask for her advice about handling such a sensitive situation. Sarah had been married for 8 years and had always given me thoughtful guidance about relationships. She listened carefully as I explained everything I had discovered over the past few days. "The lying is the biggest problem here," Sarah told me. "It is not just about the money or even the ring. It is about the fact that she felt comfortable deceiving you about something this significant. If she can lie about this, what else might she hide from you in the future?" Sarah suggested I give Angelina an opportunity to tell the truth voluntarily before confronting her with evidence. "Ask her directly about the ring again. See if she will come clean on her own. Her response will tell you a lot about whether this relationship can be salvaged." When Angelina arrived home that evening, I had arranged all my evidence on the coffee table, but I covered it with a magazine so it would not be immediately visible. I asked her to sit down because we needed to have an important conversation. "I need to ask you about your engagement ring again," I began. "I have been thinking about it, and I would like to know exactly which jewelry store you took it to for repairs." Angelina's face went pale, but she maintained her previous story. She said she had taken it to a small shop near her office and was not sure of the exact name. When I pressed for more details, she became defensive and asked why I was questioning her about something so trivial. I removed the magazine from the coffee table, revealing the pawn shop receipt, printed emails, and photographs I had taken of the ring at Golden Pawn Shop. Angelina stared at the evidence in complete silence for nearly a full minute. "Where did you get these?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I explained my investigation process from visiting jewelry stores to discovering the pawn shop receipt to finding the emails on her laptop. With each detail I shared, Angelina seemed to shrink further into the couch. "I can explain everything," she said, tears beginning to form in her eyes. "I was going to get the ring back before you ever noticed it was missing. The Miami trip is really important to me, and I knew you would not understand why I needed to go." I asked her to explain why she had felt unable to discuss the trip with me honestly. If she needed money for a vacation with her friends, we could have talked about it and found a solution that did not involve pawning her engagement ring without my knowledge. "You would have said we could not afford it," Angelina replied. "You would have told me to wait until after the wedding or to choose a less expensive destination. You never understand when I need to do things for myself." Her response revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of our relationship dynamics. I had never prevented her from traveling or spending money on things that were important to her. We had always discussed major expenses together and found compromises that worked for both of us. I showed her the email from Jessica about keeping the trip secret from their partners. Angelina admitted that her friends had encouraged her to hide the details from me, but she insisted that she had been planning to tell me everything after she returned from Miami. Jessica and Marina both said their boyfriends would not understand the need for this kind of trip, Angelina explained. They said men always try to control how women spend their time and money, and that sometimes we have to take what we need without asking permission. This explanation made the situation even worse. Not only had Angelina deceived me, but she had allowed her friends to convince her that deception was necessary and justified. She seemed to believe that pawning her engagement ring was a reasonable solution rather than simply having an honest conversation with her fiancé. I asked about Sophie, the third friend involved in planning the trip. Angelina reluctantly admitted that Sophie had recently ended her engagement after her fiancé discovered she had been using money from their joint savings account to fund previous trips to Las Vegas and New York without his knowledge. Sophie said her ex was too controlling and did not respect her independence, Angelina added. She said she is happier now that she does not have to answer to anyone about her choices. The pattern was becoming clearer. Angelina's friends had created an environment where deceiving romantic partners was not only acceptable, but encouraged as a form of empowerment. They had convinced each other that their relationships were obstacles to their personal freedom rather than partnerships based on mutual respect and communication. I spent the next hour listening to Angelina's explanations and justifications. She promised to cancel the Miami trip immediately and retrieve her ring from the pawn shop. She said she would cut contact with the friends who had influenced her poor decision-making. She begged for another chance to prove that she could be trustworthy, but her apologies felt hollow and reactive rather than genuine. I sensed that she was sorry for getting caught, not sorry for the betrayal itself. If I had not discovered the pawn shop receipt, she would have proceeded with her original plan and continued lying to me for weeks. I told Angelina I needed time to process everything I had learned and decide whether our relationship could continue. She was shocked that I would consider ending our engagement over what she called one mistake, but I explained that trust once broken could be extremely difficult to rebuild. I spent the next 3 days staying with Sarah, using the time and space to think clearly about my situation. During long walks and conversations with my sister, I reflected on the entire timeline of my relationship with Angelina. I began to remember other instances where she had been less than completely honest about smaller things, understating the cost of shopping trips, claiming to work late when she had actually gone out with friends, or omitting details about conversations with her male coworkers. At the time, these had seemed like minor issues, the kind of small deceptions that most people engage in occasionally. But in light of what I had recently discovered, they formed a pattern of prioritizing her own convenience over honesty in our relationship. Sarah helped me understand that the engagement ring represented more than just money or jewelry. It symbolized our commitment to each other and our plans for building a shared future. By pawning it without my knowledge, Angelina had treated our engagement as something disposable secondary to her immediate desires for an expensive vacation. Marriage requires a level of partnership and transparency that I am not sure she is ready for, Sarah observed. If she can rationalize lying about something this significant, how will she handle the bigger challenges that married couples face? On the third day of my stay with Sarah, I drove back to Golden Pawn Shop and retrieved Angelina's ring. Holding it in my hands again, I felt a profound sadness about what it had represented and what it could no longer symbolize. The ring was physically unchanged, but its meaning in our relationship had been fundamentally altered. When I returned to our apartment, Angelina had prepared an elaborate dinner and written a lengthy letter of apology. She showed me emails confirming that she had canceled her reservations for the Miami trip and informed her friends that she would not be joining them. She had also scheduled a session with a relationship counselor and researched articles about rebuilding trust after betrayal. I appreciated the effort she had put into these gestures, but I could not shake the feeling that they were motivated by fear of consequences rather than genuine remorse. If our relationship continued, would I always wonder what else she might be hiding from me? Would I find myself checking her phone or questioning her explanations about where she had been or how she had spent money? I returned the engagement ring to Angelina and told her that I could not continue our relationship. The decision was one of the most difficult I had ever made, but I knew it was the right one. Trust is the foundation of any successful marriage, and ours had been irreparably damaged. Angelina reacted with shock, then anger. She accused me of being unforgiving and inflexible, unable to understand the pressures she faced from her friends. She said I was throwing away 2 years of love over a single mistake that she was willing to correct. But I realized this was not about forgiveness or flexibility. It was about recognizing that we had fundamentally different values regarding honesty, communication, and respect in a relationship. Those differences would likely create ongoing conflict and disappointment if we proceeded with marriage. The weeks following our breakup were emotionally challenging. I questioned my decision, constantly wondering if I had been too harsh or if we might have been able to work through our problems with time and effort. Some mutual friends criticized my choice, saying that everyone makes mistakes and that true love requires forgiveness. But as time passed, I became more confident that I had made the right decision. I started attending yoga classes and reading books about personal development. Sarah introduced me to some of her friends, and I began building new relationships with people who shared my values about honesty and mutual respect. 2 months after our breakup, I learned through mutual friends that Angelina had accepted a job offer in another state and was planning to relocate. She had apparently reconnected with Jessica, Marina, and Sophie, and they had convinced her that my reaction proved I was not the right partner for her. This news actually brought me a sense of relief. It confirmed that Angelina had not truly understood why our relationship had ended or taken responsibility for the choices that led to our breakup. Instead, she had returned to the same group of friends whose influence had contributed to our problems in the first place. I learned that love alone is not sufficient to sustain a healthy relationship. True partnership requires mutual respect, honest communication, and shared values about how to treat each other. No matter how strong your feelings for someone might be, a relationship cannot thrive without trust as its foundation. I also discovered the importance of setting boundaries and maintaining self-respect, even when it means making difficult decisions. Accepting betrayal or deception, even from someone you love deeply, sends the message that such behavior is tolerable. Sometimes walking away from a harmful relationship is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. Today, I focus on building relationships with people who demonstrate integrity and transparency in their actions, not just their words. The engagement ring now sits in a safety deposit box, waiting for someone who will truly understand and respect what it represents. I have learned that choosing to love yourself enough to demand honesty and respect is not selfish or unreasonable. It is essential for creating the kind of partnership that can withstand the challenges and complexities of married life. Have you ever had to choose between love and self-respect? Sometimes the most difficult decisions are also the most necessary for our long-term happiness and well-being. What would you have done in my situation? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Share this video with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of trust in relationships. Thank you for listening, and I hope my experience helps you recognize your own worth and make choices that honor your values.